Good day traders, welcome back to this week's Market Fix. We had another great week of trades with most of the important levels we discussed last week coming into play. We have also started sending out individual trade setup alerts with entry, take profit and stop levels. So if you would be interested to receive those, please subscribe to our email newsletter or follow us on Twitter. So for this week, we will start by having a look at how last week's trade setups turned out, as well as a more in-depth look at the rest of the market. So please stay tuned. So we'll start this week by having a look at and reviewing the 4 trade setups that we put out throughout the week. So for those of you who do not follow us on Twitter, we do recommend that you do so, as this is one of the areas that we do put out our trades. They're also loaded on our website on the trade setups, and we are also sending them out on our mail newsletter. So let's jump right into them. The first trade that we set out was a short trade on the US dollar. Soon after we put out the trade, we can see that we reached our first target, which was at 14.65, and then we came within less than a cent of that final target at 14.55. Of course, once our first targets are reached, we usually either take some profits off the table, or at least move your stops to break even. Of course, for those of you who understand and know how to use a trailing stop, you can also do that once the first target has been reached. The second trade that we took was a long trade on the New Zealand dollar USD, and you can see soon after we put out the trade, it did make a run for our stop loss. It literally just missed our stop loss by a few pips, but after that it worked out beautifully, very soon reaching our first target that you can see at that 0.706 level. It did come away about halfway between our first and second targets before then reversing, giving you ample opportunity to lock in some profits. The other trade that we had was a long setup on the US dollar CHF, and we can see that this one also worked out quite well. It dipped right into our entry range and then made a move for our first target. Technically, this trade is still in play, as it hasn't really retraced back to the stop loss area or even the entry range as much. So for those guys still looking for a larger target, it might be worth considering, as I still expect there is a good chance of us hitting that full target. The final trade is the one that we had in gold. That was a short trade. So we can see the trade triggered and then also made a run for that stop. I did place the stop right above that 1 hour 200 moving average, and it didn't really hit a stop, but it did come quite close. But after that, it worked out very well, very quickly reaching our first target at 1.750 and then our full target at 1.740. So overall, all 4 trades worked out pretty well, all considering. So definitely worth keeping an eye out for as we put out these trades during the week. Moving on now to some of our analysis and new setups for the week. Let's have a look at the EURUSD. The EURUSD is still pretty much in a bearish trend. We can see that we did find some support from this double top neckline, and that's sitting at about 1.170. So for this week, if we do get a pullback towards this 1.179 area, I will probably put out a new trade setup alert. So do keep an eye out for that, and the bias in this case would be short. So I will be looking to probably enter a short from this area should I see some price action rejection. And the targets I would be looking for would of course be that 1.1718 then, and of course that new structural low at 1.164. Moving on to the GBPUSD, another example where we have price still looking to trade lower. We can see we have this very large overall head and shoulder stop formation in place. We are currently rejecting that 21 EMA. So I'm putting out a short alert probably once we reach the low of last week. That is 1.359. And so from there, I'll be looking for a move towards support at 1.344 should we then break below that level. In terms of a pullback, if we see price move back up towards the daily 200 SMA level at 1.383, I will also be looking for a short from this area, which will actually provide us an even better risk reward, as I will be able to put my stop just above the highs and that daily 100 SMA. Looking at the EURGBP, at this stage, slightly tending towards a more bullish scenario here, and I think that if we can get back above that 0.857 level, there's a good chance that we will be testing the highs from that daily 200 SMA, converging with those previous swing highs at 0.864. However, if we do dip lower towards this area at 0.8514, this might be an area to consider for a long, depending on price action, of course. But in the scenario where it does move quite significantly lower towards this area of support at 0.844, I'll definitely be considering a long trade, as that will also provide a very beneficial risk-to-reward ratio for a long trade. Moving now to the GBPNZD, we are still range-bound in this Forex pair. There has been a couple of false breakouts in this consolidation, but we do know that at some point this consolidation needs to give, and that will then give us some great targets. My bias at this stage is probably bullish. As we can see, we are mostly remaining above that daily 200 moving average. So a break above 1.951 will be bullish for me, and I will be looking for a move towards the daily 100 SMA, actually where it converges with the daily 50 SMA at 1.963. However, if it does break below 1.93865, there is a chance for a move lower towards 1.929, but I'd rather then wait for a move towards that area and wait for confirmation to take a long from this area, as the overall trend does appear to be bullish at this point. Looking at the Australian dollar USD, I'm also still bearish on this pair. We can see that we are now rejecting the 50 daily SMA and 21 daily EMA. A move and a break below 0.721 will trigger a short trade for me, and that will then send price likely towards those previous lows at 0.7115. If we do manage to break higher above the 0.730 level, there should be some resistance in the area of 0.737, and that will then also trigger a short trade for me with a very beneficial and very profitable risk-to-reward ratio at 0, with a stop probably around about, and it will depend on price action, but probably around 0.744, and of course a target at one of these lows. Looking at the NZDUSD, okay, well, that's the one actually where we had our trade in the week. But what we can do is we can just quickly have a look at potential new opportunities for this pair. And I believe that looking at trend, it appears that we have broken into a new bearish trend. We have now retested the daily 200 SMA, and we have shown a pretty strong rejection at multiple levels of resistance. So as long as we stay below 0.701, I do reckon that we will see a move lower. A next level of support being at 0.694, and from there, of course, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But that do seem to be the most probable scenario at this stage. Looking at the NAZDAQ, I'm going to put out a caution once again. Even though we are finding some support from the yearly R1 pivot at 15,000, I'm not so convinced that we are going to see rallies to new all-time highs, although, of course, anything will remain possible. But depending on price action, I do think that we will find some resistance at this 15,000. It's just around that, up to 15,500, yes. So I do think we'll find some resistance from this 15,500 level, and that might present us with an opportunity to take a short should we see price action rejecting this area, and from there that could then send us back towards this area at 15,185, and a break below that could even see a price as moving as low as 14,650. That is where it will find some support from the daily 100 SMA. Moving on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin currently struggling with this 40. What's that? I'd say it's about 42 to 44,000 level. It's still trading above support. We can see we have our daily 100 SMA in blue here, and I've also highlighted this support zone in gray. So we are finding support from this area, and this might hint at a move higher, probably towards this area of inefficiency. You can see we actually had a very aggressive move from this area. So should price move back into this area of the yearly R2, that's sitting at 46,000 to about 46,800. If price do move back into this area, I will probably be looking for shorts, of course depending on what price action dictates, but that might provide a good short opportunity with moves back into this area, where a break below the daily 100 SMA and at 41,000 level will probably see a move towards very strong support at our yearly R1 and that yearly 365-day simple moving average, sitting at 37.8 to 38,000. So also an area worth looking out for, and this area will act as support. Maybe just concluding by having a brief look at Ethereum. Ethereum in a very similar situation as Bitcoin. We can see that it is finding some support from this 2,885 level. I do suspect we have that same opportunity for initial move higher towards resistance at 3,250, which will then of course be a good opportunity to take a short should we see rejection from this area, and that of course similarly to with Bitcoin, probably then sending price back to testing these levels of support at 2,750 with a break below this level, possibly seeing new lows or new interim lows rather at 2,425. We hope you liked this week's video. As promised, last week we will be concluding each video now going forward with a pro trading tip. So for this week's tip, never risk more than 1 or 2% of your available trading capital on any individual trade, and never risk more than 3% per day. Until next time, we wish you all the best of your trading. Remember, trade smart and trade successful.